In a quiet, forgotten valley surrounded by tall mountains and endless forests, there stood an abandoned railway station that had not welcomed a passenger for nearly 50 long and silent years. During the daytime, the station looked like nothing more than an old broken building slowly fading away with time. With rust covering the railway tracks and wild grass growing between the wooden sleepers, the paint on the walls had peeled away long ago, the windows were cracked, and the station clock had stopped moving so many years ago that no one in the town even remembered when it last worked. Most travelers who passed near the area believed the station was simply an old ruin left behind from another era when trains once connected distant towns and carried people across the valley. But the people who lived in the nearby town knew that the abandoned station was hiding a strange and unsettling mystery that had been whispered about for generations. According to the oldest stories told by the villagers, a mysterious train arrived at the station every single night exactly at midnight, even though no train schedule had ever listed that station for decades. No one ever saw the train during the day, no one ever heard it passing through the valley during daylight, and no railway company had ever admitted that such a train even existed. Yet, on certain quiet nights, when the wind was still and the moonlight covered the valley with pale silver light, some villagers claimed they could hear the distant whistle of an approaching train echoing across the mountains. The sound was always the same, a long haunting whistle that seemed far too old to belong to any modern locomotive that traveled across the country. Many people believed the story was nothing more than a strange local legend invented long ago to scare children and curious travelers away from the dangerous old building, but a few people in the town insisted they had seen something far more disturbing than a simple story. They claimed that sometimes, when the clock struck midnight, a dark train slowly appeared from a wall of thick fog and stopped at the empty station as if it were waiting for passengers who no longer existed. And according to those rare witnesses, the train always carried silent passengers sitting inside the glowing windows. One evening, a curious boy named Aaron heard the mysterious legend while listening to the older villagers talk outside a small cafe near the center of town. Aaron had always loved stories about strange places and unexplained mysteries that most people were too afraid to investigate themselves. Whenever someone mentioned an old legend or an unsolved mystery, Aaron felt a powerful curiosity pushing him to discover whether the story was true or only imagination. The moment he heard about the midnight train that visited the abandoned station every night, he knew he wanted to see it with his own eyes. Several of his friends immediately warned him that the station was dangerous and that no one should ever go near the place after sunset. But the more people warned him to stay away, the stronger his curiosity became. Late one evening, just a few minutes before midnight, Aaron quietly left his house and began walking toward the abandoned station under the pale glow of the moon. The town streets were empty and silent as he walked past dark houses and quiet shops that had already closed for the night. A cold wind moved slowly through the narrow streets, carrying the faint scent of rain and distant pine trees from the mountains. As Aaron reached the edge of the town, he could already see the outline of the old railway station standing alone in the valley like a forgotten building from another time. The broken roof and cracked walls looked darker than the surrounding fields, and the rusted railway tracks stretched endlessly into the night. Aaron carefully stepped onto the dusty platform and looked around at the silent building that had once been filled with travelers and busy railway workers. Now the station felt empty and strangely lifeless, as if time itself had stopped moving within its walls. Aaron pulled out his watch and checked the time carefully. It was only 2 minutes before midnight. For a moment nothing happened at all, and the valley remained completely silent except for the soft whisper of wind moving through the tall grass near the tracks. Then suddenly, Aaron felt a faint vibration under his feet, so weak at first that he almost believed he had imagined it. But the vibration slowly grew stronger, spreading through the platform and the railway tracks like a distant rumble approaching from far away. Aaron quickly looked down the empty tracks stretching into the darkness beyond the station. At first there was nothing there except darkness and mist drifting across the rails. Then slowly a faint yellow light appeared in the distance. The light flickered through the fog as if something enormous was moving toward the station from the far end of the valley. Moments later, a long haunting whistle echoed through the night air, the same strange whistle the villagers had described in their stories. Aaron felt his heart beating faster as the sound grew louder and the distant light slowly became brighter. Through the thick fog, he could now see the dark shape of a train slowly approaching the abandoned station. The locomotive looked incredibly old, far older than any modern train Aaron had ever seen before. Its metal surface was dark and worn, and thick steam drifted from the engine as the wheels moved slowly along the rusty rails. The glowing windows of the train illuminated the fog around it, casting pale light across the empty platform. Slowly the train rolled into the station and came to a quiet stop directly in front of Eren. For a few seconds, everything was completely silent. Then the train doors opened with a long metallic sound that echoed through the empty building. A cold gust of air flowed out from inside the train, carrying a strange chill that made Eren shiver. Curiosity pushed him closer to the nearest window where he carefully looked inside the carriage. What he saw made his stomach tighten with fear. Passengers were sitting in the seats inside the train, but none of them were moving or speaking. Their faces looked pale and distant, and their eyes stared forward as if they were looking at something far beyond the walls of the train. The entire carriage felt frozen in time. Then suddenly, one passenger slowly turned his head and looked directly at Eren through the window. The passenger raised a hand slowly, inviting him to step inside. Eren hesitated for a long moment, knowing that every instinct in his mind was telling him to run away immediately. But curiosity once again overcame his fear. Taking a deep breath, Eren stepped through the open door and entered the mysterious train. The door closed behind him instantly. The engine roared softly, and the midnight train began moving once again into the endless darkness beyond the valley. After what felt like a long and silent journey through the endless fog, the mysterious train slowly began to slow down once again. Eren looked through the window and felt a sudden shock when he realized something unbelievable. The train had returned to the same abandoned station where he had first stepped aboard. The rusty platform appeared outside the window exactly as it had before. The train doors slowly opened with a heavy metallic sound. Eren did not hesitate this time. He quickly stepped off the train and onto the cold platform. The moment his feet touched the ground, the doors closed behind him again. The old locomotive released one long haunting whistle that echoed through the valley. Then the midnight train slowly moved forward and disappeared back into the thick fog from which it had first appeared. Within seconds, the tracks were empty again. The abandoned station returned to its deep silence. Eren stood there breathing heavily, trying to understand what he had just experienced. When he checked his watch, something strange made his heart skip a beat. The time still showed exactly midnight, as if the entire journey had happened outside the flow of time itself. Eren slowly stepped away from the platform and looked back one last time at the empty tracks. Somewhere far beyond the darkness of the valley, the midnight train was still traveling, and perhaps one day it would return again, waiting for another curious traveler brave enough to step aboard. If you enjoyed this mysterious story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more mysterious adventures and incredible stories. And remember, if you ever hear a lonely train whistle in the middle of the night, you might want to look toward the nearest station, because somewhere out there, the midnight train may still be arriving.